Hey, welcome everybody. It's Jim Warren with TXAPA. Glad to have you here today. We are continuing on our series of optimizing paving practices. We are recording this, and you will get a link to the recording. If you saw last week's, you noticed that we ran out of time, and this will be connected right to that. We'll be using the go to webinar webcam feature. We'll show you how to maximize your screen for that, and we take questions at any time. So if this is what your screen looks like or something like that, and you just got a small little box there and the rest of it's black, go ahead and double click on that webcam, or particularly the bottom right hand corner, and that will maximize your screen. So all you'll see is the webcam feature. We're pumping everything through there best we can. So right now, you should be hearing us. Audio hopefully is okay. If not, I can turn it up a little bit. I may do that anyway. Video should be full size. So let's do a little quiz or a little check right now. Go ahead and type in the question box where you are from. Where are you from? What city are you guys in right now? And let us know. You can type your question right in there on the bottom right hand side, and make sure you hit the send button. We've got Austin, Weatherford, Rosenberg, Buda. Thank you, Russell. You should have just come over here. You could have watched it with me. El Paso, Laredo, Corpus, great, excellent. Thank you. All right. Our safety share to others, more coming in. San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, Eden, Beaumont. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Our safety share today is if you see something, say something. You might just save a life. Safety is everybody's business. Don't get complacent. We should always be looking out for others, particularly people, even if they're new, and particularly even if they're old. Sometimes you tune things out and you forget about things, and you just need to keep on track. So we're going to look at a couple different areas: at the plant, on the road, in the shop, and in the lab. So our first one is out at the plant. Again, PPE is important everywhere. Watch for missing belts and conveyors. A lot of things moving at an asphalt plant, so you got to stay in there. Be careful when you're working around loaders and trucks. Remember, at the asphalt plant in most places, the loader and the trucks have the right of way. Make sure you get eye contact with the loader operator. Make sure he sees you when you're out there. Wave to them with more than one finger. Make sure when you're wearing fall protection, when you're in a man lift or any sort of thing like that, you're wearing fall protection. Make sure your fire extinguishers are up to speed and up to date. On the roadway, this is what we're talking about today. PPE is a huge issue. Make sure we're wearing it. Most people are doing a great job of that. Sometimes you still see some people that are pretending it's 1980. Watch for traffic backing up. Problems with trucks ingress and getting in and out of the work zone can be an issue. Make sure we're looking out for that. Level 1Bs, when you're working with the rolling pattern, you bend over, your vest is up here, and you bend over, now I can't see your vest. So the leggings, even the gaiters, all those things are work to help light you up a little bit, particularly at night, obviously. Improper lifting of equipment in and out of a vehicle, just lifting up a gauge, leaning over the edge can throw your back out. And one who has had back problems over the years, it ain't a whole lot of fun. Standing between equipment and live traffic. There's generally about 3 feet of space in there, and there's no place to go if there's a problem and a vehicle decides it wants to come in there with you. Don't walk between equipment. Again, a lot of times from going one side of the mat to the other, we want to duck underneath a conveyor or run between a truck and the back of a paver. Nobody will see you there if you fall. And unfortunately, if you fall in there, it's not going to be a good day. MOT devices, again, you see something, say something. If they're knocked down, broken, not there, make sure you say something. They're there to help you and help guide the people driving through your work zone who are generally not familiar with it to get through safely and securely. Don't turn your back to traffic. And again, be always on the lookout. They call that 360 for drunk or distracted drivers. Somebody, texting is just as distracted as if they were drunk or chemically modified to some degree. So let's be careful there. In the shop, again, PPE is always important. Proper lifting straps and chains and rigging for lifts is really critical. protection against welding flash and grinding sparks, lockout, tag out. You know, little things can, you know, get you in trouble. Make sure all the safety guards are in place on grinders and saws. In the laboratory, again, proper PPE for the lab, hot pans and equipment. Be careful. Even if it's just sitting there metal, it just looks like it's on the counter. Someone may have just taken it out of the NCAT oven, and all of a sudden, oh, that was you know, 900 degrees, and that's a little bit of an issue. Pinch points on compactors and other pieces of equipment, and again, proper use of and disposal of chemicals. So a lot of stuff going on there. Hey, Chuck, who's responsible for safety?
We are all responsible for safety. Need to pay attention. We are all responsible. And again, see something, say something.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Thank you. And who's responsible for getting home safe? Todd?
Everybody.
There you go. Good answer. Good answer. Awesome. Good job, guys. And just remember, if you see something safe, you can help everybody get home safely. Again, a couple more people joined in. Thank you. We got Corpus Christi in there and Beaumont. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Let's see. Before we, here's our lineup today. Obviously, we've been through the safety share. We're continuing. This is our last of our series of the optimization series. So this is the last program of this round. Now we're already talking about having round 2. So going deeper in some of these other areas. So look for that probably in October. And we'll come back to you and let you know what's going to come on. But we've got real good feedback on this series, and we want to continue providing you guys the information that you need. So in the question box, if there's a topic that you think we ought to be covering, go ahead and just type it in there. If it's something specific, just type it in there. If it's generic, type it in there. Just type it in there and we'll take a look at it. We appreciate it. Our panel day, Todd Mansell's back with Caterpillar. Chuck Fuller is back with TXAPA. Gentlemen, say hello.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
All right, good deal. And here's our question to get going. And let's see. Here's our first quiz of the day. Everybody's got to respond now. Okay. What temperature? And I want an answer in Fahrenheit. Don't do Celsius for me. What temperature do you stop getting density at? What temperature do you stop getting density at? Type that in the question box and just hit send, and let's see what we get. So let's go ahead and get Todd online, and Todd, go ahead and get your screens locked up, and let me get switched over there, and let's see what we get here. Got 160. I think I need to put my glasses back on. So here we go. Got below 170, below 160, got 220, 180. 160, 230. Todd, you there?
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
I am here.
All right. What just happened? Where did that come from? That's a new one. Let me see what's going on here. All right. There we go.
Okay.
160, 230, 160. Those are good responses. You know, I guess the question that we didn't ask is what kind of binder it is, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think a lot of you guys, I mean, if you're in the lower 2s, you're probably talking about a modified binder. What do you guys think?
Oh, yeah.
I would say definitely.
Yeah.
If you're in the low 200s. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the 160, 180 range, probably your standard 64 grade binders or is probably about right. So just like everything in the asphalt world it depends. And that's the answer to the question.
I think Todd made a good point before we went on, is that he can get density at any temperature. It's just, what is the mat going to look like afterwards? So
yeah, that's a good point.
A good point. So that's really crucial. Temperatures are crucial for it all. And I believe when you start taking off on this, Todd, I believe that a lot of this stuff we're going to be seeing is going to be temperature related. You know, when you get to the head of materials and again, our 244 There's no doubt temperature is a huge portion of this. So kick it off and let's get going.
Yes, sir, it definitely is. And yep, we will be getting into some of that today. And again, welcome everyone. Thanks if you were here last week. I'm just going to kick off here with a quick review of what we did last week, and then we'll continue on here with part 2 today. So continuous paving was one of the things we covered last week. We got into some compaction, pretty much finished that up, and today we're really going to kick off with the takeoffs and continue on here. Again, just a little review from last week before we get into the new stuff. So we talked about paver speed and continuous paving, going through the calculations for that. So basically here we were just looking at a total tonnage that we want to put down for that shift and figuring out what I call perfect world paving and having a paving speed that would get rid of that tonnage over the number of hours that we have planned for that paving shift. The whole idea there, just minimizing, or in a perfect world, eliminating any paver stops throughout the day. And when it got to compaction, one of the big things here really tying back to balancing rollers and paver speed, but also quality in terms of getting compaction or density and smoothness. The big thing here was 10 to 14 impacts per foot is what we target with that roller speed. And
about an inch apart.
About an inch apart. So if you get going too fast with that roller, you're spacing it out, those impacts too far. And as you can see in the picture there, you can even see this in the mat when it's extreme. So 10 to 14 impacts per foot. So setting down and taking off with the paver. So this is our transverse joint. Some people call them night joints or butt joints, but that's where we finish off at the end of the day and then set down the next day to take off from again. Or maybe it's in this picture, the very beginning of the first hole on this paving job.
You could also even have this as an issue where you've run out of trucks and you've been sitting too long. And it's what do you think? Is that a good practice at some point, Todd, just to go ahead and pick it up, clean it out, and cut a joint? Yeah,
great point, Jim. Yeah, if you're going to be sitting a long time waiting for trucks or plants broke down, something's happened, if you're going to be waiting for a while, you're better off to just build that transverse joint, cut it off. I know it's a pain in the butt. Nobody wants to do it, but you're really going to end up with a lot better density and a lot better quality if you. So great point.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. Also, is to if you're going to be stuck in traffic or something that happened, a breakdown, start again. Do a transverse joint, clean the paver out, start again, just like the beginning of the day, is better than trying to compact it when the material is 150 or 160 degrees, around that screed.
Absolutely. So when we set down to take off, we're going to build a pad, or most often we see starter boards underneath, and we're going to set our toe point, our angle of attack. We're going to lower the screed. We're going to null it out. And when I say null the screed, that screed does its best job when it's what we call totally relaxed. So we take all the tension, twist, if you will, out of that screed before we start paving. And what we have here, again, quick review, those 15 steps, paving by the numbers, just like putting your seatbelt on when you get in your vehicle.
Hey, Todd, how long has that been around?
This has been around for over 20 years now, Jim. And real quick story, how we got this started was we had a lot of phone calls come in, and people would tell us, your equipment's messed up, something's not right. Mm-hmm. And not saying that doesn't ever happen, it does, but a lot of the times it was not the equipment, it was the setup and the operation. So lines in the mat, things like that were operational or setup problems, not equipment problems. So these steps were developed around that, Jim.
Good deal.
And it took a bit of tweaking to get them all figured out in the right order. So.
But these are they'll work on any color, not just yellow, right?
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah. So any paver. This is, and it's important to go through the steps in order. And I won't get into that today, but if you practice these steps and you do them out of order, you will find at some point you might get by 9 times out of 10, no problem. But there'll be that one time it'll come back and bite you.
So we have this also on our website. We have paid by the numbers, and then we also have, it's a PDF file. It's underneath our reference page. And we also have when you start having mat issues. So Caterpillar put together a whole, if you have streaking in your mat, if you have segregation in your mat, if you have center line, if you have outside, they motioned each one of those and what to do to be able to eliminate it. So that's also on our website on the reference page. Easily, it's a PDF file. Everybody should be able to download it and have it on their desktop, or the guys out in the field should have it. So if they start having issues with their mat, you guys did a really good job with doing that paving by the numbers and then isolating those areas and being able to fix those areas.
Good job, Chuck. Yep. Great resources are available out there, guys.
And one of those, a couple real quick highlights on the paving by the numbers is just not all the boards you put under that screed to set it down on, or the pad, they got to be full length. So 3 to 4 feet long to go all the way under the extensions and that main screed.
How thick do the boards need to be?
Great question. Board thickness. So we want to be the thickness of the mat that we're putting down, plus factor in a 1/4 inch per inch for compaction. So just for example, if I wanted to put down 2 inch final thickness after compaction, I'm going to put down 2.5 inch loose or 2.5 inch boards underneath that screed. Okay. So great question. So you have to allow for compaction. That's the thing to remember. So if we're starting out off a new mat, like you saw a couple slides ago, you want your full mat thickness plus the roll down 1/4 inch per inch. If you're taking off from an existing mat, you're just going to have, so say it was 2 inches I finished yesterday, and I'm going to take off today, continue on with 2 inches. I'm just going to have 1/2 inch boards on that mat yesterday that I finished off. So that 1/2 inch will allow to roll down to 2 inches and match from where I was taken off from. So, make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, I've seen a number of situations where, I mean, they've remember one job they were paving a diagonal or a transverse bridge deck, and they were making multiple poles, and the first 2 poles off the bridge, they had the slats underneath it and to cover for it, and the last one they backed up, and I was like, where's the boards? and they pulled off, and all of a sudden when they set their straight edge down, all of a sudden there were 10 guys with shovels and loots just slinging mix trying to fill in the hole. So we're trying to keep do the right thing. It's also going to save you a heck of a lot of work by doing the right thing. So just FYI,
save you a lot of handwork and a lot of bumps.
Yeah.
So you want to get those boards good and long. What you see on the right side of your screen there is not what you want. I was the guy who used to get asked to run out in the ditch and find the rocks and pop cans and stuff to put underneath there, but all that screed's going to do when it pulls off of that is just nose over and put a big dip in your mat. So full length boards, one of the important things there. And this picture, you can see a takeoff with no starter boards. Like Jim just mentioned, you take off like that, there's nowhere for compaction there, right? So that roller's just going to bridge in the center there. It might come out nice and even and look pretty, but there's going to be no density there. That's gonna ravel, blow apart in a matter of no time.
And you'll see a dip.
And you'll see a nice dip there.
Yeah. This is one of those that we could probably talk about for hours, because not only the boards, but you can do a starter pad, and then how to address rolling that, without pushing the material away from the joint and trying to keep the material full to the joint. So, I mean, we could spend another hour just on transverse joints, and I think we probably should do that, because again, I've seen them done both ways. I've seen them done incorrectly, and I've seen them done correctly. So absolutely, I think we probably could spend some more time on transverse joints, because there's a lot of stuff to pay attention to here.
You know, one thing that I've seen that you pointed out on a number of jobs when doing some of these award ratings on these projects is contractors doing a little bit of pre-planning and planning not to have a transverse joint in between the bridges. And so they will set their job up to pave from bridge to bridge. And it may be several miles long, but that's what they're going to do for the shift, to just eliminate that transverse joint altogether. And I think that's a level up to go ahead and do that. I applaud everybody who's making that arrangement.
One of our award winners did exactly that. They paved bridge to bridge, Austin Materials on State Highway 45. And you could tell there's no transverse joints. They did a really good job. It takes some planning, it takes layout, and it takes planning, and it takes time, to figure it all out. You just can't go out there and just start one day and just do it. You really have to pay attention. But again, I think we probably should put this in our queue for more discussion.
Yeah, definitely a good topic. I mean, we can, like you said, Chuck, we could talk, spend quite a while just on that. And then setting the toe points is another thing. And again, without getting into the details, basically here, the toe points on the paver up front there, we want to have a straight line of pull from those toe points, because they're just pinned connections back to the pivot point on the screed. So again, without getting into a lot of detail here, our goal here in the setup is just getting that straight line of pull. And what that really ends up doing is keeping that screed at the right angle of attack when we do finally set down and take off. And when it runs at the right angle, we're using the majority of that screed plate. So in a lot of situations, first thing I do when I get on a job, I like to get there before they even start the paver and look underneath, and I can tell by looking at those screed plates if they've been running at a high angle of attack or nose down, and anything off of that, what I call perfect angle of attack, 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch, you'll see wear on the screed plate, but the screed doesn't float as well as it should, and you just don't get the same quality results.
And I think that's a real good takeaway today for people that are, if you guys are out there paving, is look at that screed and look for wear patterns. It's not taught much, and then typically you've probably not seen a lot of people do that, but obviously don't climb underneath the screed unless it's blocked up. But you can raise that screed up and you can look underneath there. And it's a really good point, because that screed is the iron that's going to determine the texture of the pavement, the coming out underneath the screed. And we want good texture. We want uniformity. And if it's not set up right, or if it's wore out, it's because we're not setting it up properly. We could certainly have an issue there. So that's a good takeaway today for you guys to write down and say, man, I'm going to go check the bottom of the screed. And just remember, everybody, we're taking questions all day long here. So just if you got a question, go ahead and just type it in the box, and we'll fade it out to Todd and Chuck, and we'll get it answered for you. So go ahead, guys.
So that's your line of pull. Again, normally, and then that's really setting us up to get the right angle of attack on that screed when we do start paving. So again, normally 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch angle of attack is what we want to run at while we're actually paving along there. So if that angle's too high, it's running on the trailing edge and compacting with that trailing edge. You'll see a shiny matte texture. But really what you're going to end up with is erratic screed behavior. So if you're riding again on the tail, maybe you say the last 10 inches of that 18 or 24-inch deep screed plate, there's a lot of pressure on a small area. So that screed's not floating so much as it is going, it's kind of like water skiing. It's going up and then it's dropping, up, drop, up, drop. And you see this chatter in the mat.
I don't know if everybody can see that or not, but that is amazing. And it almost looks like roller marks. It almost looks like an impact pattern.
Yeah. And it's sometimes easy to confuse the two. You see those marks, and the only way I can tell it's a screed is just because they go all the way across the mat. So if you see something like that, you're not sure if it's screed or roller, just see how wide they are, and that'll tell you. Yeah, because it is tricky to tell the difference if you see that. And the angle of attack again. So real quick on these two pictures here are just showing, and again without a lot of detail. It's another training session, but your main screed and your screed extensions can, if they're not adjusted properly, have a different angle of attack than the main screed. And that's when you see those stripe or texture difference behind the extensions. It doesn't look the same as it does behind the main screed. That's a sign right there that your angle of attack on the extensions is not set up properly.
So Chuck, I got a question for you. How long should we see that before somebody does something?
See something, say something. Holy smokes. You know, I can't stress enough. If you see something, you need to say something, and it needs to be fairly soon. Now, I know when you very first start off that first pull, that first 100 feet or so, you're going to have a little of adjustments to do. There's no doubt. You know, the temperatures becomes an issue and what have you, but holy smokes, if this is going down the road and you're 1,000 foot down the road and you still have this too high side over here that's on the left-hand side, we should have already corrected that. If you could see that, you could fix that. Ain't that right, Todd? I mean, that's the stuff you could fix it. So that's the things we need to pay attention to. If we could see it, we could fix it. And so I'm a firm believer. See something, say something. Whether you're a rake hand or shovel hand, get it right, fix it.
And there's a real example of it there. I mean, that one's really out of whack, right? So again, just if you see something, say something, because that can be fixed.
Well, at least they got a tunnel extension on there.
Yeah.
It looks like maybe an auger extension.
Yeah.
So, almost so close.
Almost. And then one of the other steps in there in that paving by the numbers is filling up the auger chamber to what we call half auger height. So that is important. We're going to see when we get into talking about head of material here. But this is still the paving by the numbers setup. Fill up that auger chamber. You're going to have to get a shovel out, manually shovel some of that mix across all the way out to that end gate. Because what we really don't want to do is overfill it in the center or behind those conveyors right in the center of the main screed. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm as lazy as the next guy. You know, I don't want to. It's a lot easier just to jam on those augers and dog that mix all the way out to the end gates. But I'm gonna end up with a pile of mix in there, and that's gonna create a bump or problems when I take off.
All right, I got a question for you. I don't see prime coat as well. Okay, all right, thank you. What if the screed extension needs leveling and it's not an angle issue? Thanks, Greg. That's a good question.
That is a good question. So, and that is something that you're not probably going to be able to make that adjustment in the field. So some of these adjustments are set up in the shop. But you're right, if that's screed, and typically what will happen with extenders, screed extensions, especially when the bearing or the bushings and stuff start to get worn, I mean, it might be fine, no problem when it's 2 feet out, but you get out 3 feet and 4 feet, and then you get, I call it the gull wing, and they start to droop or drop, and then there even might be some twist in it as it extends further out, and that can translate into actually being at a different angle than the main screed. So
good questions, guys. Keep them coming.
Great question. Yeah. And once we pull off, so again, this is our paving by the numbers, and I skipped a bunch of steps, but now once we get set down, fill up that auger chamber to half auger height, all the way to the end gates. We already figured out our paving speed, right? So 36 feet a minute in the example we went through last week. So I'm just going to throw that propel lever full forward in the paver operator and I want to get right up to that 36 feet a minute, smooth and quick. The pavers nowadays, doesn't matter what brand it is, they're designed to do that. It's not like the old days where you could do that and throw a couple guys off the back of the screed and land on their tush in the hot mix, but that's not going to happen with modern pavers. So you want to get quickly up to speed, and the reason you want to do that is everything engages quickly, so it ramps up. If I go slow and I just feather that propel, my conveyors kick in, my feed system kicks in, I send a whole pile of mix. So I could have done all that paving by the numbers stuff right and got set up, and then I just ease up the speed really slow, and I get a big pile of mix coming back on the conveyors. And guess what?
So let me ask you a question. I've seen a lot of times where people will pull off the joint and they'll pull off 30, 40, 50 feet and they'll stop.
Oh, yeah. That is not a confident paving crew, right? No,
Okay.
I got to watch what I say. But no, best thing to do is, if you've done the paving by the numbers, you should feel pretty good about it, right? So up to speed and just keep going.
Well, I think
And
some of that is that they're going to be running mix back to fill the joint in and that kind of stuff. But I guess what you're saying is if you've done everything right, there won't need to be a lot of material brought back to rework that transverse joint.
Exactly. I mean, you get in the groove of following those steps religiously, and it takes practice. I mean, you're not going to do it overnight if you haven't, but once the crew gets in the groove of doing that, and everybody's on board with it, goes back to communication we talked about. You take off, and that paver should just be able to keep moving, right? And I've seen good paving crews, they'll take off, and there's literally no handwork. I mean, everybody has their odd day when something isn't perfect, but for the most part, it just bump that transverse joint a touch with the rake, and the rollers come in and start right into their rolling pattern. Yeah. So once that paver takes off, if you're on the screed, you're going to check the mix feed. So, and I see a lot of crews take off, and then the first thing they're, on the screed, you're looking behind you. That comes soon, but the first thing you want to do is make sure the feed system is actually on and engaged. So it doesn't do me any good to look back if there's no mix coming back from the conveyors. So it's just a quick check to make sure, hey, we've taken off and the mix is coming back from the hopper. And then what I want to do is check my auger speed, and I'll talk about that coming up. And then once I got the auger speed dialed in, I know I got mix coming back, then I'm going to turn around and look for lines. If I start looking for lines first, but I don't even have my feed set right, then what's the point? So I want to make sure my feed's good, and then I'll look back.
So Todd, when you say checking your auger speeds and you're checking your feed, you want continuous feed. You don't want the augers or the feed to you want a continuous feed, the material continuous feed from the chamber. You want a continuous movement, right? When you say check the auger speeds and check the material feed, it's continuous.
Yeah, exactly, Chuck. Yeah, we want to have those conveyors, and that's when we're going to make those adjustments to the conveyors and the mix height dial to get that continuous conveyor movement and continuous auger movement. Yes, excellent point.
So it's more important to do that when you're starting off, is to make sure that you get that auger feed and that feeding material to where you're at the auger height, and you'll talk about that. But it's more important at that point than it is to check for lines in the mat. You can check for lines in the mat as you move on down after you get that procedure done.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah, great point. And it's tempting. I mean, first thing I want to do is look behind and see what's coming out. But yeah, get the feed system dialed in. And then we look behind us for those lines or texture differences or angle of attack difference between the extenders, any mat defects or blemishes. Now we got our feed system dialed in. We're going to look back and see what's going on here. So in this picture, you'll see a line. And one thing I do in this case or in this picture, that right screed extension is a little too low. So I've seen pavers go all day long with that line in the mat. That takes about 10 seconds to get rid of that. And that all that is raising the extender up. Just hold the little button, look at the line. As soon as that line disappears, take your finger off the button, and ta-da, that line's gone.
Yeah, I think that's just one of those things. It's a little attention to detail, but it's so easy to make that stuff go away, assuming everything else is set up right. So the question is, why not? Why not make it just go away?
Yeah, and it drives me nuts sometimes because I'm just I love paving, and I'm too much of a perfectionist maybe, but I mean, I've had people say, well, it'll roll out, and you know what? A lot of times it will, but why have it there? I can't look at it all day. So anyhow, that's me. The only thing you got to be careful, you will see lines like that sometimes for a short distance. And the key here is not to overreact. Mm-hmm. So if you see a line there, especially if I'm running grade control, I want to look at that grade control box and make sure it's stable. It's not making a change up or down, because when that screed does make a change, you will sometimes see a line like that, maybe 25 feet long, 30 feet long, until that screed readjusts back to equilibrium. So don't overreact when you see those lines, but if they're continuous, you can get rid of them.
How are we doing on time? You good on time?
I think we're good.
Okay.
And on those transverse joints, the straight edge tells the story, right? Or the string. You can put a string down there and pull it across. So that's your takeoff. Head of material. So switching gears, we've taken off. Now managing that head of material at what we call half auger height. So there's really 4 things to manage here. So the picture you're looking at is showing what we call that half auger height. So basically, if I'm a top paver operator, I want to be able to look down and see the top of those auger flights and probably the top of the auger shaft in there. If I've got my head of material. 85–90% of all the problems that we see or have on the road with the mat are related to this head of material. I can't overemphasize the importance of a consistent head of material while we're paving. Because again, remember that all that's holding that free floating screed up as we pave is the mix underneath it. So if that head of material fluctuates, what's that screed going to do?
Up and down.
Fluctuate, right?
Up and down, up and
Up
down.
and down.
And that's the reason why you have to have your feed, sensors positioned correctly, your auger speed, everything needs to be continuously working and not fast stop, because that'll keep your head of material consistent.
And that's your ride too.
And your ride big time. Yeah. So there's really 4 things to manage on that head of material. You've got your conveyors, so we call them ratio dials on the paver controls. Got auger height, auger speed, and another real big one, feed sensor position. So I'm going to cover those things, but we do have a poll question coming up. So I'd like to throw this one out at y'all. Do you and your paver screed operators focus on managing the head of material at half auger height? So you got.
All right. So the poll is open. The poll is distributing. Poll in progress.
Excellent.
So go ahead and shoot your little box should have bumped up there. You go ahead and just type in your answer. We're getting some in right now. All right, great job, everybody. And it's a race. And see who's going to win. We'll do it for about 20 more seconds. So if you haven't dialed in, dialed in.
So again, that head of material is a really important thing here. So
I've got another question while we're doing that. When you're paving 12-foot lane with a 4-foot notch wedge, do you increase the head of material to cover that area?
A 12-foot lane
and a 4-foot notch wedge. Wow, that must be a thick layer.
Yeah. In that case, I would think you would want auger extensions if you're having to increase your head of material that much to get that amount of material out there.
All right.
Maybe without more detail, I don't know if I'm answering the question properly, but
All right.
sounds to me
So
like
I'm going to
maybe
go ahead and close
more
the
auger
poll.
extension.
Let's see. We got A is 19%. B is 48%.
Very good.
C is 29%. And D is 5%. So thank you.
So we got a lot of people
weighing in.
managing it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, the guy said it's a shoulder drop.
Oh, a shoulder drop.
So he's paving main line and a shoulder and I guess a single pass.
Absolutely add the auger.
Yeah.
You got to push material out there.
Add the auger and try to maintain that head of material. Don't use a shovel or don't fill it up to, over the auger height to try to get that material to kick over to that shoulder. Add the auger.
There you go. Here's a shot.
There you go.
Don't do what this guy's doing, right?
Yeah, don't do this, guy.
So
because inevitably you may just you may not have enough material on the outside edge. May not be enough material in there to form that outside edge, and so it's actually going to be thinner, and that material will ravel out.
Yeah. And I would think, if you got a 4-foot drop there, it almost sounds to me like maybe that should be getting paved in more than one pass. But again, I don't know the details there. But you can see in this picture, obviously head of materials really high, right? Way too high. It's kind of ironic. I thought it was a good laugh, actually. They took the sign off the truck that brought the equipment out there and used oversized load to stop the mix from going over top of the screed. But there you go. So here's what happens, that head of material. And this is something that in my travels around the country, the nice thing about paving is we all have the same practices, and good and bad all over. But what happens, so we look at head of material. Quite often I see the paver stop empty, there's no trucks, but they leave, it's hard to see in the picture, but on the left side, you leave a full head of material back there. So there's mix back in the screed there and the conveyors. So that's no problem. Hopper's empty. But they sit there and they wait and wait, and the next truck gets here. What happens when that next truck dumps on there? So these guys are telling me, they're going, we're good. We got half auger head of material here. What happens when that first truck comes now, fills up the hopper, got to run mix back? So usually one of two things happens. Truck dumps mix in the hopper, the tunnels between the hopper and the conveyor are empty. So the paver starts out, and what happens? Head of material drops because all they got was a bunch of air coming out of the conveyors, right? So that's usually one thing. The other thing that might happen is truck dumps in and they know, hey, we need more mix, the tunnels are empty. So they bring the mix back, but you don't really know how much mix you're bringing back a lot of times. It's sometimes hard to control. So again, not saying you can't do it with a lot of practice, but that head of material, really important. And if you're running that hopper empty, you run a pretty big risk of leaving a bump or a dip in the mat. So if you're just stopping for a short time, leave mix in the hopper. It's going to help with segregation as well. So there's your head of material. If you're looking down from up top, you can see it's a little less on the left side than it is on the right side. So that's where we're really looking for that half auger height. And we're going to use the conveyor ratio dials again to set that and get that material or mix height at half auger in the center of the screed there.
And that bottom picture and that last picture is something you do not want to see.
Right. I do not want to see the slats on your conveyor. Again, segregation when you fold those hopper wings now, or even when the next truck dumps on top of that. Good chance again too with that head of material that you're gonna drop and take off with either bumper or dip in the mat.
Yeah.
and you're losing a lot of heat. What's all that? What do you think's going to hold heat better? Hopper half or 3/4 full for 5 or 10 minutes, or what you're looking at here?
Yep.
You're better off with a full hopper before that next truck shows up, unless it's going to be a long, long time. Auger height. So this is another big one, controlling head of material. Also going to help your mat texture. So helps prevent segregation and again, helps manage that head of material. So I have seen, we're running that auger really, really high. You're basically forcing yourself to run a high head of material if you have those augers. So what we recommend is running those augers where the bottom of the auger flight is about 2 inches above the mat that's coming out underneath the screed. So most augers are 8 inches in diameter or 16 inches in diameter. So half of that is 8 inches. So if I take 8 inches from the center to the outside of the auger plus 2 inches, that gives me 10 inches. So for a simple guy like me, 10 inches plus whatever my mat thickness is where I should set that auger height to start off. I might have to tweak it up or down just a little bit once I get paving, but that's going to be right in the ballpark.
It seems pretty simple.
So Todd, what about different types of materials? Say a type B boy, which is 3/4 inch aggregate, or ASB, which has a 1 inch aggregate, versus a Tom mix, which has a 3/8 inch aggregate. Does that matter in terms of your thickness, or not your thickness, but your auger height?
Great question, and the answer is, my experience, yes, it can affect that. So good question, and that is the case where unless I absolutely knew, just because I used that particular mix all the time and knew right away where to set my auger height, I would still start out at this 2 inches above the mat. And I might, once I get paving, I might tweak it a little bit. And when I say tweak, it's usually no more than a 1/4 inch up or down. So it's pretty small. It's usually pretty close to that 2 inch.
All right,
Great question.
Let's keep going, because I want to make sure we get to that thermal segregation stuff.
So there's your auger speed, 2 seconds per revolution. So we talked about 20 to 40 RPMs is really where you want to target that auger speed. If I get going too fast, I'm throwing rocks. If I'm not moving fast enough, it's can be segregating and dragging. So continuous movement, easy way to do it. Count 2, find a nut or bolt on the end of that auger shaft and just count 2 seconds for 1 revolution is 30 RPM. So it's a quick, easy check on that auger speed. But we want to be in that 20 to 40 range. If I get going too fast, segregation, and I want to see those auger plates. It's to move the mix. It's not a boring machine. So if I got it buried, we're going to get segregation. Other big thing here is positioning or aiming our feed sensors. So Chuck mentioned early on, and then the last slide there, continuous feed system. So that includes the augers. So if my augers are doing that on, off, on, off, on, off, I'm going to see it in the mat. I'm going to see texture differences where the augers are shut off versus when they're turning. But this almost always comes back to how this feed sensor is positioned. So these feed sensors are what's controlling the amount of mix at the outboard edge of those augers, if you will. So where I aim them, most people are using sonic sensors. Next slide, I'll show a paddle sensor. But that's a sonic eye, and all it's doing is sending sound waves and getting them back and reading distance. And that's based, you set it as a screed operator. So where you have it aimed is going to make a big difference on how those augers turn. So if I'm catching where it's coming off, right off the end of the auger shaft, a clump comes off, it catches that, says, whoa, I got enough mix here, I'm good, shut off. And then all of a sudden it drops and it says, hey, I got no mix, bring it on. Brings a whole bunch of mix back. So you get all that on, off, on, off, on, off. So you got to aim it at what we call the live moving material. And we want to be about 18 inches away from the end of the auger shaft, but also about 18 inches from the face of the mix. So it's, you know, a little bit of practice there, but it's really not that hard to aim those. And with the sonics, they are sound waves. So if I'm not aimed as square on as I can, 90 degrees or perpendicular to the mix, I lose some sound waves, and I just don't have as good a control over the amount of mix that's back there. So very, very important to get those feed sensors aimed properly. And if you're using paddle or mechanical sensors, same thing, 18 inches from the end of the auger to the tip of the paddle there, and a 45-degree angle. So when that mix level drops, that paddle goes off of 45 degrees and it says, hey, I need mix, augers crank on. When it overflows or that gets above 45 degrees, it says, whoa, I got enough mix here, and shuts the augers off. So really important where we position these feed sensors to get continuous auger movement. And this is a picture of a mat here where you'll see what it looks like when you get on-off auger. You'll see maybe a coarse texture for a little bit where it drags, and then it looks nice for a little while, and then it drags again. Just walk up alongside, and you can do it while it's moving. Loosen the wing nut on that feed sensor and just re-aim it a little bit to where those augers are moving continuously. So all those things I just talked about go to managing that head of material. Are there any questions on that, Jim? Or
not yet. We got
Todd,
we got 8 minutes left, so we gotta get this part in, because this is important. So let's plow through here.
All right. So thermal mapping. So I'm not totally familiar with 244, but I am getting more practice with actual thermal mapping and have done it in the past. But I just wanted to highlight a few of the things we can see here from, and I know these are thermal camera images, but I just want to highlight a few things we can see by looking at the thermal data that we're getting. So you've got the display on the paver showing you the map in real time, which to me is the most powerful tool that we have out there. It really is, as far as a quality control tool. So I can see different patterns, different thermal patterns, and it can pinpoint down, in this example, maybe my auger height's not right. Maybe my deflector plate in the center of the paver's worn out and needs replacing. Because you'll see those different thermal profiles behind the paver when those sort of things, and they'll show up. And again, and you all know that have been using it, you'll see different patterns, right? So that on-off auger movement, or conveyors on and off, not moving continuously, that's going to show up on those thermals. So, you know, if you got the information there, pay attention to it and learn from it. I mean, it's great information in my eyes as a quality control tool, not just because the state requires it and you need to submit it.
But all you've been talking about, all these sensors, speeds, and auger heights and head of material, is to have a consistent temperature across that mat so that you can have consistent compaction. I mean, that's
Exactly.
the whole purpose of everything. If your auger heights are wrong, or if your head of materials are varying and the material's coming back and everything, you're going to have thermal problems in the back, which means you're going to have issues with maintaining your rolling pattern and maintaining that consistency with that mat. That's the whole purpose of everything, guys, is consistency. That's the whole purpose. That's when Todd said you take off and you're looking at that feed before you start looking at the lines, is to make sure that you have that consistent flow of material so that you have a consistent temperature behind the mat or behind the screed, so that you can establish your rolling pattern and everything is consistent throughout the whole mat. That's the whole purpose of everything. So, I mean, this is super important to know when you're dealing with thermal segregation or dealing with temperatures. Temperatures equal compaction, and the more consistent you are with that, the more bonuses you will get. I mean, just bottom line. That's the bottom line. The more you pay attention to the consistency of your mat, the better bonuses you will get in the field. Bottom line.
And the congregation said, "Amen."
Exactly. It's all coming back to that uniform compaction and bonus and smoothness. Yeah. And I'm just going to skip through quickly on a few slides. All I wanted to show is just some different things. I know this picture's older than 80s, but it's been around. But showing spills on the grade, that's going to translate. There's a high spot that's going to show up on your thermal image. So these are all things again that the thermal is going to highlight for us if we're paying attention and watching it, right? And again, I just can't overemphasize, I love the real-time aspect of it, that I can see it while I'm paving. I'm not going to go back and look at, if I pass all my thermal traces or maps and all that, I don't have time to go back and look at all that stuff. But if I can watch it while I'm on the screed while we're paving, to me, that's some powerful stuff. And not only that, I can see the cause and effect. I see something on the screen, I can go up and look and see if those augers are turning or the conveyors are moving or what's going on there.
And I think that's one of the big takeaways of using the scanners is what Todd just said. So keep that in mind. Use it as a continuous process control tool as you're paving. Trying to go back later, it's too late. But you can do it as you're going, make adjustments, see the change. Great training tool.
Yeah. And again, showed that one earlier. But these are just examples. I mean, I could go on for half a day just on this stuff, but outside edges, angle of attack on the extender is different. It's going to show up on my thermal. Just showing the effect of a long paver stop. So that's going to be a bump, difference in density. It's going to be a smoothness hit, probably a localized roughness area. So if you see something, say something.
There you
right?
go.
There you go.
And that's the blemish-free mat that we're talking about.
So I'm a firm believer that also, if you can have all the tools, you can have a shuttle buggy, you can have a insert, you can have all that stuff out there and still have issues if you don't pay attention to the details around that screed. If you don't pay attention to that head of material, continuous feed, auger height, if you're not paying attention to any of that, that material could be coming to you and you using all those tools and you will have issues behind that screed. So you got to do it all. It's just not, you just can't put a shuttle buggy in there and cure all your ills, or you got to do it all. You just can't do one. They all have to work.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Grade control systems, 3D paving, and buggies, all those tools. If you're not doing the fundamentals right, I hate to say it, but all those are great technologies and tools, but they're not going to help you.
Okay, you got to wrap it up.
So a few things: keep the blemish-free mat. Don't touch the screws. You get it all dialed in. We're good. Don't need to rake the joint, right?
Right.
So if we got all that dialed in, spills on the grade. So again, these are all things that are going to show up in thermal to clean out areas. So don't bang the trucks out in front of the paver.
Mm-hmm.
Pull off, bang them out, haul that back to the recycle pile at the end of the day, right? Bumping the paver, there's your bump in the mat when that truck driver bumps up, right? So the paver needs to pick up the truck. That screed mark from a truck backing into the paver is not coming out. So just a few other things there. This is more on the compaction side.
Yeah, we may need to come back and do compaction.
So I'm going to show one last one here, Jim.
All
this really gets me going on the smoothness. So it goes back to planning. You really got to think about it when you got tie-ins and stuff like that. So I mean, I've seen pavers doing driveways ahead of the main line, and then you got to tie in with it. Well, good luck getting a bonus on smoothness doing that, right? Okay. So this is just planning stuff.
Gotcha.
There we go.
Good deal. Hey, go ahead and get out of that. Get you back in full screen, and want to just ask both of you guys a couple questions. And let's see if we can do that and that. Oh, that's not going to work. All right. So, Todd, thank you so much. We're not done yet. You got a couple things. Chuck, I want to get back to the estimating the bonus potential for the project, and also want to talk about tracking the bonuses just for a couple minutes. Give me your viewpoint on that.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that let's talk about this at the pre-pave meeting, and let's talk about this during our all hands meeting there on the job site. Everybody should be aware of the bonuses that are available to them. TxDOT and the contractor both should be have knowledge of the full bonus available to them, both in production and placement. Those should be tracked daily, and those should be communicated daily. And again, that debrief at the end of the shift or the beginning of the shift, let's talk about what we did right and what we need to do to be able to maximize the bonus. TxDOT wants to pay those bonuses because they know that they're going to get a higher quality mat. They're going to get a higher quality material, and it's going to give them longer lasting life, and maintenance doesn't have to get out there and do anything with it for 10, 12 years. So again, everybody should be on the page. We need to track it, keep it in a control chart, and everybody should be aware of it. Your 1Bs, your 1As, your guys in the lab, your guys in the field, everybody should be aware of where we stand, and it should be done daily during the debrief, and stay on top of it. Again, you cannot make the changes after it's already happened. You need to make the changes on a daily basis after the debrief, and the way that we do that is through knowledge and through communication. I can't stress it enough. We got to communicate. We got to communicate, guys.
So
Yeah,
how much are we leaving on the table? How much?
Right now, my last calculations is that we're getting less than half on production and half on placement. Seems like the production bonus is a little bit higher, but we're getting less than half. So if you're getting 50% of your bonuses, you're leaving 50 on the table. So the last time I did the calculation, in the state of Texas, on our 18 million tons, we had $86 million available for bonuses, production and placement. 86 million, and that's in one 12-month period. And we're getting less than again, maybe 30, 35 million of the 86 that's out there.
So there's an opportunity.
We're leaving a lot on the table, guys. We really are. We really need to pay attention, and it's because of awareness, and it's because we're not communicating it, and it's because we're not tracking it. Some people do a pretty good job with it, but most people do not. They're not tracking it. They're not keeping track of it on a daily basis, or they're not aware of the full potential bonus that's available to them.
Good deal. Good deal. Hey, Todd, final comments.
Well, just to follow up with what Chuck said, I think communication is just absolutely critical, because I'm always learning stuff. Everybody is. If you're not learning, you're not paying attention, and something different, something new, something different every day. But we got to do the fundamentals right. Do those things, focus on those paving by the numbers and that head of material, and you're going to scoop up another 25% of that bonus that TxDOT's leaving on the table right now. And I'd like to see it all taken up. So do the fundamentals right, and communicate and talk about what works, because we have a tendency to only talk about the bad things, but talk about what's working for you and getting you that bonus.
Yeah, that's real good points, guys. Hey, Todd, thank you so much for joining us twice. Still think we probably could have gone on for another couple hours, but maybe that's what we'll do, and we dive a little deeper in October. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for coming back. These will be posted on our website, and we're glad to have you here. Thank you for participating, everybody. We appreciate it. Thanks for jumping in on the poll and for letting us know where we are and what the temperatures are and some additional questions. We're always pleased to get that. Anytime, if you've got questions, feel free to contact myself or Chuck Fuller at TXAPA. That's what we're here for. We're here to help make things better. Help give you the smooth ride. That's kind of what our goal is, and make sure the asphalt is nice and smooth and lasts as long as it's supposed to. So in the meantime, it's still hot out there, so stay hydrated. Remember to be safe, wear your PPE, and we look forward to seeing you on the stage when you win your next award-winning pavement at our next pavement award. So in the meantime, be safe. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye now.